All right, welcome everyone to the live event. My name is Jeff Rolka. This is live Q&A number 6. For those of you who have been here in the past, thank you very much. For those of you who are new, I hope you enjoy the, it's not so much a program as it is a live event where we're going to just talk about questions and things like that. The chat window is open. It's over on my screen. It's on the right-hand side. It might be on the right-hand side for you too. I don't know. But the chat is there for your use. So please chime in with your questions, interact, ask questions. Just basically feel free to get in touch. I do encourage people to send questions in advance throughout the course of the week, and a couple people have done that, and so I'm going to start off by tackling these first. And so here we begin. This person's an alto range vocalist singing in choir, and it says, I'm a little confused about something. I always thought females were always either soprano or alto. Now I'm hearing other names such as mezzo-soprano and contralto. As I mentioned before, I sing alto in my church choir. Is contralto the same thing as alto? Is mezzo-soprano and alto in the higher alto range? Some questions about range. Now, there's a couple things about Fache. That's spelled F-A-C-H-E. And Fache is one's vocal designation. So I'm a tenor. That is called my Fache. All right. Within the tenor realm, there are a variety of other designations. You can be a tenor leggero or a tenor robusto or a lyric tenor, and each of those individual or distinctions has different attributes. Okay, a tenor robusto tends to be a little heavier. They might take some more of the dramatic, heavier roles. A lyric tenor tends to have a little bit higher range voice. Now, getting specifically back to the question at hand here, there's a lot of overlap in all of the vocal registers. So a soprano and a mezzo-soprano and an alto range vocalist, there's a lot of notes in the middle of their ranges, throughout their ranges really, that they will be able to all sing. Okay? The Fache, or range designation, is about the colors of their voices, the low notes that they can sing, but most importantly, where the Secundo Passaggio, where that transition point is from thyroarytenoid dominant singing, which is typically called chest voice, to cricothyroid dominant singing, which is typically referred to as head voice. And that's how we get all these vocal designations. So, the Faches are really important if you're preparing classical repertoire or you're doing an operatic role. That's when the Fache tends to really, really make a big difference. For those of us who are singing popular music, it's nice to know these things, and it's nice to know where in our range we are and the attributes of our voice so that we can choose our cover songs appropriately or put them in an appropriate key. But I don't put a huge amount of weight in it. I focus much more on the ability to make smooth transitions through the transition points so that we can sing a lot of whatever we wish to. So, simple answer, the female voices are not always soprano, they're not always alto, they're not always mezzo-soprano or contralto. Contralto is going to be lower. It's typically the lowest female voice, and it overlaps tenor almost completely. So that female vocal range and that tenor range overlap quite a lot. The mezzo-soprano is the most common most common designation for female vocalists. Its range is very similar, her range, will be very similar to that of a soprano's with a few small adjustments. Altos tend to be a little bit more rare than a mezzo-soprano, but still quite a number of them. FYI, just because you get designated as an alto in the choir doesn't necessarily mean you're an alto. You can sing the alto part, but you still may very well be a mezzo-soprano. The ranges, again, there's a lot of overlap in them, and it's about knowing where the transition points are. Thank you. That was a really, really fun question. I really appreciate you sending that in. I have a question on screen, but I'm going to take these first, so thank you very much. Is it possible to sing same high note in pianissimo and fortissimo, and how to train this? That's an awesome question. So I promise you I'll get to that immediately following this. This next one is really, really important too. The question comes off, the first thing is lip trills are for more than warm-ups. It represents the optimal positioning of basically everything for singing. True. Yes, lip trills are more than just a warm-up. The lip trill is a great way to work on range development. When I have vocalists and we're just working on making a smooth transition from thyroarytenoid, chest voice, to cricothyroid, then a lot of tends to occur because the lips take a lot of the weight of the air column off the vocal fold, and that makes it easier for the vocal fold to adjust that ascent and descent over the secondo passaggio. However, that means it's not the optimal positioning for singing because it's an artificial environment. You don't get the benefit of the lips burbling that way when you're singing solid vowels. So there's a transition that has to occur from doing all your lip trill stuff. Let's see here, where am I on the piano? Let's show you here. There I'm going above the secondo passaggio. And you can hear it's, well, I have been doing this for a long time, but with the lip trill, it's very effortless. And the voice makes a really smooth transition up and a smooth transition down, and it's really, really fun and easy. We have to learn, however, how to keep that lightness on the vocal fold when we switch to vowels. And so there's a little bit of transference there that happens. The next question here was humming. When you hum a tune, the point where you feel the vibration is the point where you should place the note when singing. Humming is a really excellent exercise, and especially for getting airflow happening prior to the release of the vowel, and especially for opening up a little bit of space in the rear of the oral cavity. The challenging part about that question is that I can't entirely tell where it is you are placing the sound with the hum. So if you're humming, and I can move them forward and backwards, I suppose the hum does tend to open up some space back there and makes it pretty well focused. The beautiful thing about humming is when you use it as a start to then release into the tone, and that's where I use it most in my teaching. So for example, if we're working on the ah vowel, and ah tends to spread on us a little bit, and it's a very common thing for us to have to work on. So I've got a vocalist, and maybe they're going ah, trying to sing that ah vowel, right? And ah, what we can do to bridge the gap between ah and ah is to start with the M. And it's a really nice segue getting into a more focused, well-balanced ah vowel. Okay? You'll notice, however, the release is incredibly light. There's very little ma. There's little articulation when I go from that M to the ah. If you've got a vocalist or you yourself are practicing and you hear that ma, a big push like that, there's too much facial tension, maybe not enough airflow and engagement, not enough space. Try to make it as smooth as you can. And and that's going to help that vowel focus. Last of the pre-requested questions, and then I'm going to start taking the on-screen questions. Thank you so much. It's a beautiful, beautiful, a lovely, lovely amount of questions here, and I'm going to get to those in a moment here. This particular person has been using the website, jeffrolka.com, and they have a lot of questions regarding how to use the method. The method is broken down into low and high voices, and I use those designations because all the exercises are done that way. And the low voices are typically meant for male vocalists, and the high voices are typically meant for female vocalists. Now everyone's different, so you may find that one set works a little bit better than the other, or if you're a male vocalist and you're using the method to work on a lot of high range stuff, then you may find that some of the higher range exercises are going to work for you. But it's the person who's asking these questions has a lot of questions like, which one's the best for me? Which one's, like which one should I use? I've never heard this person sing. I don't know what your voice is like. As a general rule, I don't read off the names of the people because I like to protect your anonymity. You're always welcome to take credit for it or chime in on screen. But so I don't know. I would say in general, stick to the lower range exercises if you're male, and if you find that they're too low, then try the higher range ones and see how it goes. But the method as it's done thus far is meant to be in a comfortable range. You should be able to comfortably sing the notes of the exercises so that you can focus on the formation of the vowels and the patterns. It's all about focusing on those vowels, making smooth connections between them. Now, the last question they have is about breathing, and it says, I'm still confused about breathing by expanding the ribs. When I take breath at the beginning, it's okay, but when I want to take another breath, here's the problem. I feel that I should push my belly out to take air because my belly already goes inside. Can I explain this? I'll do the best I can. Unfortunately, in my experience, in what I have read and in what I have studied, the notion of pushing the abdominal muscles out is perhaps one of the greatest misunderstandings in singing and breathing technique. I meant to bring in my Richard Miller Training Tenor Voices book for this session, but unfortunately I forgot it at the other studio, so I don't have it. But in it, he says, and I'm paraphrasing, that when you push your abdominals out, you are just moving viscera. You're moving your guts around, right? The idea behind the Appaji O breath management system is that, and I'm going to have to stand up here to show you a little bit, so you can see me here. When I expand laterally, my rib cage comes out. This pulls, now my diaphragm connects way up here by my heart. When I expand that way, the diaphragm descends. Now I have good engagement between the rectus abdominis muscles and where the diaphragm is. And the diaphragm and the rectus abdominis muscles and the intercostals and the ribs help to keep the expansion. They all work together to maintain Appaji O, that suspension and engagement that we're working towards with the Appaji O breath management system. So when we recycle the breath, like say I just hiss. So I expand, I hiss, now I've taken another breath. There's virtually no movement of any kind. I'm going to stay between 80% full and 20%. I'm never going to go more than 80% full. I'm never going to let myself get more than 20% from being empty, because at that point is when things tend to collapse and we can't maintain the expansion if we get too low on air. So I'll pull my shirt tight and hopefully you'll be able to see one more time. Here's me at rest. Now I expand. Appaji O is about maintaining that expansion through the ribs so that the diaphragm remains lowered. The rectus abdominis muscles lift towards the diaphragm to work with it to maintain the engagement, so-called support. And that allows us to have a very, very free vocal fold, to keep the air moving at an appropriate manner for what range we're in. And that has had such a dramatic impact on my singing, perhaps the most significant adjustment I made to my singing technique in a long, long time. All right, I hope that helps. Let's get on to some of these questions on screen. Thank you so much. Is it possible to sing the same high note, pianissimo and fortissimo? There is, thank you, great question. There is a certain amount of dynamic contrast that we can have at any given range in our voices. In the comfortable middle range of our voices, it's really quite easy to have quite a wide dynamic contrast, right? As we get higher and higher, the amount of airflow, the minimum amount of airflow that we need to maintain good timbre and good intonation goes higher and higher. So if I'm singing a D natural above middle C, I have to maintain a certain minimum amount of airflow in order to keep that sounding good and in tune, and also keeping my throat loose. Now, if I'm willing to change the timbre a bit, then I can kind of mix it somewhat. And I have a little bit more flexibility. In terms of volume, fortissimo, as we get higher and higher, the voice tends to get louder and louder as we ascend because we're increasing the airflow. It's the soft side that becomes challenging. And whether or not you would definitively sing pianissimo in the same timbre as fortissimo is debatable, is questionable, particularly if you're in the extremes of your range. But certainly if you're willing to blend it a little bit and have a bit more heady sound, then you'll have a little bit more dynamic contrast. Hope you're well. I was wondering what vowel to sing with words such as will, I, and like. Thank you. Great question. And thank you. I am doing well. I hope that you're doing well too. Depends on where you are in the range. Will, I comes off more as like. They change to diphthongs as you get ready to end them. So perhaps the most important aspect of will, all of them really, is when you go into the diphthong, when you end it. So if you are going to sustain the note for a while, like, sustain it there on the predominantly sounding vowel rather than the diphthong. Like. That tends to close down the voice and sometimes is appropriate. Depends artistically what you're trying to do. But typically, if you want to sustain it, stay in the vowel. Hi, Jeff. I can't thank you enough for all these great resources you put out. What is your process for learning a new song? First of all, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for your kind words. I truly, truly appreciate it. I have to admit to being a vocalist as well as a teacher in this regard. When I'm learning a new song, I tend to sing the song and have some fun with it for a while. And then I remember that there is a process to it. If you're learning a brand new song and you want to make it the most efficient way that you can, start with the lip trill or some type of partially phonating sound. So you might start off with, if it's brand new, right? That's going to be the easiest on your voice. Then, when you are getting closer, try the NG. Making sure that the resonance stays the same. If it starts to change on you, then practice the area where the resonance is changing. Get that nice buzzy thing happening. And that then paves the way for getting into solid vowels. Start with E, perhaps. E. From there, start moving into the vowels that are in the phrases. So get rid of the consonants from the song, start working through the vowels, and then put the consonants back in. Keeping in mind our singer's priorities. I don't have like a really catchy name for the priorities for singing. I call it singer's priorities. And what that is airflow, melody, and then lyrics. And lyrics gets broken down into vowels and consonants. So airflow is your first priority, your melody is your second priority, your vowels come next, and then finally putting the consonants in. So I do hope that helps. Okay, I'm afraid I can't read that. So, yeah, do I have a translate button here? I'm sorry I don't. So, Susan Taylor on screen, thank you for clarifying female vocal ranges for me. I do have a bit of difficulty transitioning over the break between chest voice and head voice. My voice actually cracks when it should be easy. Okay, first of all, you are not alone. Many of us crack when we're learning to navigate through the break, or which I prefer to call the Secundo Passaggio. Is it easy? You know, I don't like to talk about how difficult things are because I never want to give someone the impression that it's challenging. I've had many people go more quickly and learn more about their voices rather quickly than would be typical. Like, normally we think like, okay, to get a successful transition through the Secundo Passaggio is going to take, you know, X number of weeks, you know, 6 months or something like that. And, you know, client after client beats that by a vast margin. So I don't belabor the point, but getting a successful transition through the Secundo Passaggio, it takes some practice, and it's kind of challenging. And especially if you're predominantly working on your own or off the videos and things like that, you know, be patient, take your time, focus on the airflow. If it's proving problematic, get back with the lip trill. Check out the video that I did, which is How to Sing High Notes for Male Voices Part 1. It talks about the technique for how that works. You're going to have to find your range and practice that there. I am going to do a segment for jeffrolka.com, which is about this. So it is going to be coming up in the not too distant future, although there's a few other projects that I have to do for the website before that. But you know, there's a lot of resources out there. Check out the video first on YouTube, and then maybe, you know, get in touch with some questions here. How to sing high baritone. I'm not sure exactly what that means, the parentheses. Or, is that a parentheses? Yeah, that's a parentheses. There's a couple videos on the channel about high range baritone work. If you're asking about how to do it, it's going to be a lot about transitioning through the Secundo Passaggio accurately and carefully. I also have cracking problems. Why is that happening? You know, the cracking happens because there's an imbalance between airflow and vocal fold engagement. Especially if you have grown accustomed to having a very high vocal fold engaged sound as you approach the zona di passaggio. When you begin that process of backing off of that engagement, and the airflow isn't quite sufficient enough, cracking can occur. So, you know, as one of my teachers many years ago used to say, like, when your voice cracks, it's an indication that you're trying something new. And that is often a good thing. So don't worry about the cracking. Try to notice what's happening. Try to notice if you're sufficiently engaged. Try to notice the quality of the vowels when it occurs. And then seek out the resources on the YouTube channel or send a question or something like that, and we'll point you in the right direction. No. Is it necessary to warm up in a loud volume? And Capone chimed in with, I think not. And I agree. Volume as a vocalist is an indication of a well-aligned system. So when you've got a nice amount of volume happening, it's because this is freed up, you've got good lift and engagement, air is flowing, and the soft tissues in the oral cavity are resonating. My suggestion is to, when you're warming up, think mezzo forte, mezzo piano, but we want to be flexible. So as we descend, it's going to get a little bit lighter and a little bit softer. Conversely, pardon me, as we ascend, it's going to get a little bit louder. As we get higher and higher, assuming that we stay loose and the air is flowing, the volume is going to increase. If we try to squeeze those notes out, then we're going to dampen down the vocal fold, and then we're ultimately going to start losing volume as well. Aziz, hello. Still confused? I'm not navigating the chat window very effectively. Here we go. Still confused about ribcage breathing. I see you've got a few other. I'm going to read these. I mean, when I want to take another breath, I feel that I need to push my stomach muscles out. Is that right? The right way? Aziz, again, I am going to go contrary to so much of what vocal teachers out there in the world teach, but no, it is not correct to push your abdominal muscles out. I realize that there are many teachers that recommend that. The reason why I think this is because I think it's a lot easier to do that and to visually confirm it than it is to successfully sing with the Appaji O breath management system. It's an attempt at an easy fix, but long term, I do not feel that it is effective. Do not take my word for it. Please don't. Richard Miller's book, Training Tenor Voices, goes through this breathing method, Appaji O breath management, quite thoroughly. If you do a Google search for Appaji O breath management system, you will get a really great link. I'm trying to remember a woman's name, and I'm just drawing a blank right now. I'll probably think about it in a minute, and I'll give it a shout. She goes through a very excellent explanation for how Appaji O breath management works, and it's not quite the same. You may feel like you need to push them out from old habit. Focus on that expansion. Try to feel your muscles in the back. Hike your hands up onto your hard ribs and try to press your hands apart with your rib cage. If you can't do it, or if you find that habitually you are sticking your stomach muscles out, check out my video, which is called, it has the word "the lean" in the title. it gets you into a position where it's very difficult, if you can at all, stick those muscles out, and see how it affects your voice. You can also sing with your arms over your head and try that. The sensation of wanting to press those muscles out will take some time to abate. You're going to feel that inclination for a while as you practice maintaining a proper expansion and engagement. But over time, you will find that it will eventually go away, and you'll have that expansion and that engagement with the abdominal muscles lifting towards the diaphragm. And again, like, of all the things that I have done with my voice, changing to a true Appaji O breathing system had the most significant impact of anything that I have done in memory. So please check in with us more, either on the live Q&A or send me another email. Let me know what's going on. Your tips are always helpful. Thank you. Thank you. You are very, very welcome. Braxton Cook, hey Jeff, you're great. Cheers. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Susan Taylor, thank you. Your tips on singing through the Secundo Passaggio. We are so fortunate to have your videos for help in different areas. Thank you. You're very, very welcome. Thank you so much for your kind words. I really, really appreciate it. Maz. Thanks again, Jeff. Do you have any tips for faster vibrato, especially during short phrases? Interesting question. Okay, so the most important thing about vibrato is that it occur naturally. Once it begins to occur naturally, then I feel like you can work with it a little bit and try and, get it to do more of what you'd like. But the main thing is that if you're trying to force it, it can get a little billy goat-like. And if that's what you want, that's cool. What you'll find is that you'll notice a little bit of vocal fold engagement occurring. That's to be expected because you're kind of lifting into those muscles a little bit. Just try to keep it in a range that's not too high, because you're going to quickly run out of space. With an increased vocal fold engaged posture, you might not have the range that you want. But the thing about it is that I want to make sure that you're singing through the vibrato. Again, unless if it's for effect, right? If it's for an effect and it gets a little choppy, then that's cool. If you want it to continue to be smooth and linear sounding, then there's probably a certain limit to the speed you're going to get. Or alternately, you might allow it to be a little shallower, and that will increase the speed as well. So you can think about a faster vibrato in terms of reducing the range of it so that it just sort of permutates more quickly. Or if you're okay with it getting a little bit choppy, then you can induce a little bit of vocal fold engagement, not too much, but just a little bit, and you will probably get that effect, but it's going to come with perhaps a little billy goatishness. Let me know if that's what you're looking for, if that's what you're after. Braxton Cook, can you talk about using your mask and singing with forward placement? I have to speak in the back of my throat. People have trouble understanding what I'm saying sometimes, so singing can be similar. Of course. As one coach of mine many years ago said, the mask is an integral part of our sound. So if we sing without it, we get a little bit like I've got a cold, like my nose is really stuffed up. And as an affectation, that could be cool. But the mask, for a complete vocal sound, what one might call the natural singing voice, it's part of it. We need that nasal pharynx and the sinus cavities to be open. Now, if you're using a microphone, or you really, really need to project, you're singing with a band, or you're singing in a coffee shop with an acoustic guitar and you don't have a microphone, there's no amplification, coming a little further forward into the mask will help you project over the surrounding noise and also the guitar. How far you project, it's kind of up to you, right? That's probably whereabout I would go with it for myself personally. I find that to be acceptable and pleasant. You can go further. You can also still have it, but come back. I think you'll find a sweet spot that you like and that works with your speaking engagements, and that feels right to you. The way to discover the mask is to play around with it a little bit. There's an exercise for point, which is a way of referring to the mask in bel canto terms. It's a very unpleasant sound. So it's is how you would start it, and you can extend it a little bit. And you can really start to feel that forward resonance. That tends to be very aggressive and doesn't necessarily translate immediately into your singing. When you find it that way, however, start the NG sound. The NG sound is hung. You hang on the NG, all the air goes out the nose, and you try to maintain that bright brilliance. When you find that you've got that brilliance happening, then release to ah. And with that new awareness of using the mask, try going forward with it and seeing if you like it. Try coming back. You can always check it with the NG sound. So you want to go forward, very forward, maybe a little too far, so come back. Go through the exercise again, release to ah, see how you like it. A quick sip of water here. All right. I'm going to do some navigation of the chat window. I got the mask. How do I, as a tenor, achieve squealo? I haven't heard that term in a long, long time. If I understand that correctly, you're looking for a well-balanced vowel sound, particularly in the zona di passaggio. If you're finding that you can't stay on the vocal fold, if that's why you're looking for squealo, then you can start off with an E vowel, wee, 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 and work your way through the zona di passaggio, ascending and try descending first. So start, wee, 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 wee. Then do with you, 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 you. The oo vowel tends to, we tend to feel the transition a little bit more with that while still staying on the vocal fold. That's the most important thing. It's when we slide off the vocal fold that we lose that squealo. When you start to get that happening, then work towards scalar exercises through the zona di passaggio. Again, staying on the vocal fold with a well-balanced tone. And that, again, assuming your airflow is adequate through the zona di passaggio, and the vowels are sufficiently balanced in that they're going to have to open as you're in the zona di passaggio to allow for airflow, but narrow enough to have the vocal fold meeting fully, then you should find that you've got some squealo happening. For all who are curious, thank you, exactly. Paris Ruiz or Paris Ruiz, you're absolutely right. Thank you for posting that in there. I did not remember her name in a minute, but you are absolutely right. Gerald Ryan New, hello. Hello back. Amanda. Hi, Jeff. I have a question about whistle register. I'm not sure what it is. I'm supposed to have it, but even though I've been told the sound is okay, for me it feels like a fake sounds or like a fake sound. Okay. Whistle register for the female voice is akin to what we would call falsetto range for the male vocalist when falsetto is used in the right register. Okay, so it's the ligament producing the timbre on the outside of the vocal fold rather than the brunt of the meat of the main vocal fold. So to demonstrate this, I end up singing quite high for that. So here's me going through, this is me going through the Secundo Passaggio, right? So this is thyroarytenoid dominant to cricothyroid dominant. Now, what most people think of falsetto is when the male vocalist goes, and you can hear how airy that gets. That's the ligament in my voice producing those tones, but it's not really the range that it's best suited for. All right? So as I go higher and higher, sorry, I'm talking so much, I'm really drying out, and so that's not as pleasant as it could be. But when I get to B natural, right by high C, is when I get into falsetto, and it still feels light. However, it's not airy, and that is when we get into, you know, the falsetto range for the male vocalist, and for the female vocalist, we'd refer to that as whistle tones. So it's the ligament on the vocal fold, and in the right range, if you've got adequate airflow, it'll feel light. If it's airy, you may be going there too soon. And I do hope that helps, that's what it is. It's the ligament on the outer surface of the vocal fold. More video for volume control for tenor, please. Will do. We can do that. Your videos, thank you. Thanks for the amazing tips. You're very welcome. Do you have any tips on how to hit higher notes at a lower volume? You know, I talked a lot about this right at the very beginning of this session. So briefly, as we ascend, if we are maintaining good airflow, our voices will quite naturally get louder and louder and louder. Okay, we're making successful transitions through the zona di passaggio. We're ascending. We're staying loose. We're staying resonant. We're gonna increase the volume, and so at any given range, there is a minimum volume that we need to create in order to have a good full sounding voice. So, you know, if I'm here, then that note has a certain minimum volume. Before I'm going to need to do something different to it to stay in tune. So there, I really favored the cricothyroid muscles. It got much lighter, and it had a certain, you know, effervescence or airiness to it. Not quite airiness, and the volume dropped dramatically. So if you want to have a full sound, then there's a kind of minimum amount of airflow you're going to need. There's going to be a minimum amount of volume. If you're willing to allow it to sound a little different, then you get a little bit more latitude, but then you're going to have an adjustment to the sound quality there too. The quick tip though for volume control is focus on your engagement. We must work harder engagement-wise to sing softer than to sing loud. I know it's paradoxical and kind of counterintuitive, but in order for this to stay loose, we've got to have that subglottic pressure, so you've got to really, really stay engaged. Sorry, I'm late again. I did go on earlier, but my phone was laggy, so I couldn't respond on the chat. Anyway, I think we're doing very well. Thank you for chiming in. Thanks for sticking with us and getting back in. Yeah, cool. Orlando, any tips for singing in a recording studio? Where do we even begin, Orlando? Can you be more specific? And I will, if there's something specific, I will happily address it. I think the main thing is take your time. If you have your own studio, then I would say budget 4 hours for a lead vocal. If you've practiced well and you're ready for the studio, you'll beat that by a pretty long margin. But just taking the time pressure off can have a huge impact on one's ability, speaking for myself, to deliver the goods. Have water on hand. Speak up. Speak up. If the mix is not to your liking, speak up. We want to always be kind to our engineers and be respectful and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, speak up. If the mix isn't right, ask for it to change, because that's going to have a dramatic impact. And I always sing with one earphone on and one earphone half to 3/4 off is another thing that I always do. And that's just for starters, you know. We could do an entire session on recording studio stuff and not finish. Braxton Cook, saying thank you. You are very welcome. Thank you. The Mobe. Hello again. Hello to you, sir. I was just going to ask you tips for dealing with performance nerves, maybe things I can do or things not to do. Thanks. Again, like, we could do an entire session on performance anxiety. That's what we called it when I was in university. It was performance anxiety, nervousness, butterflies. Biggest thing about it is perform often. But here's the catch. I'm not suggesting you perform often with the idea that the nerves are going to go away. I think that's a fallacy, because I've been performing for like more than 30 years at this point, and I still get nervous. I think I get nervous because I so desperately want to do well. I really, really want to do well. I get nervous before these Q&As because I really, really want to do well. I get nervous before I cut the videos for the YouTube channel. I get nervous before all these things because it's very, very important to me that I do a good job. However, because I've been doing it for such a long time and I've observed what works and what doesn't work, I know that I want to eat about 2 hours before I have to do my job, before I have to perform. And I'm going to eat a light meal so that I'm energetic in the performance. However, I'm not going to be full in any way. I know that when I'm done with this, I'm going to be ravenously hungry. But that's fine. I'll be done and I can go and get some food. It's not a big deal. For vocalists, water, tepid water, right? So room temperature water. If you are incredibly susceptible to caffeine, don't drink it before the gig. If it's an early morning gig at 11 a.m., but you always have coffee in the morning, get up at 5 and have your coffee so that you don't have a caffeine withdrawal thing happening, or you're sluggish, but you've had time for that to process through your system. It takes about 2 hours for a cup of coffee to process through your system. So you can get that out of the way. It boils down to observing what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And keep a journal or a notes of what works for you, and then start integrating those into your routine before your performances. You'll notice I almost always wear a black collared shirt. That's part of my performance anxiety routine. I wear black shirts because it's what works for me. It's what makes me feel good. So I do hope that helps. Hoping to ask you, this is hello, Ms. Rolka, hoping to ask you today about the beginner video and wondering if they are warm-up or not. Absolutely, man. You can totally use the beginner videos for warm-ups. They're great if you've been like sick and you're getting over a cold, or if you are sick but you want to like kind of keep your voice sort of supple and move some mucus around. The caveat there is that if you have been told by a doctor not to sing, then don't sing. And if you can't vocalize to the secondo passaggio or above it, you must not sing. Okay? Or if you've got like a ton of postnasal drip and it's irritated, don't sing. Don't sing. But if it's just a cold and you're blowing your nose a lot, but your voice feels okay, it's just there's a lot of mucus, then the beginner stuff can be awesome for that, because they tend to be in a narrower range and a little slower paced. And so it's just really, really nice and gentle for the voice. So yeah, totally warm up with those. Greg's Life 7. Hi, can you demonstrate the shift between thyroarytenoid dominant and cricothyroid singing on a held out note? I've been struggling to find my head voice, and that's what helped me in the past. That's an interesting question because I don't think about that. I don't know if I've ever been asked to do that. But I don't see why I couldn't. It's going to be around E or F. This is going to be interesting. So, thyroarytenoid dominant, and E natural I can easily sing in chest voice. E, and I mostly do sing that in chest voice. But I can sing it in head voice, or cricothyroid dominant. And then I'm immediately switching out. Now, if I hold the note and switch, that could be really cool. Let's go thyroarytenoid to cricothyroid first. Takes a lot of air. And then let's do it in the reverse now. So now I'll go up to the note E natural and I'll land on it in cricothyroid, and then I'll change over to thyroarytenoid. This may be more challenging because it tends to be, it just tends to be more challenging to do that, but let's try it. So there you go. I do hope that helps. It's a very interesting exercise. It's interesting to notice the play of airflow. I noticed that to make the transition into thyroarytenoid from cricothyroid, I was really, really lifting, really, really focusing on the air engagement there. Greg's Life 7. It's frustrating because in my last college voice lesson, I found my head voice and could do it really well, but since summers began, I sort of lost it. I'm really sorry to hear that. If you need a little primer, there's two things. There's two things that I find are really, really good at smoothing through that transition, and depending on where you are with it. Like, if you can already sing through it, then do your exercises on the NG sound, and keep it resonant, keep it bright, right? That brilliance helps to maintain the connection between cricothyroid and thyroarytenoid dominant singing. And then try your vowels. And then get back to us here and let me know what's going on with that. But I will say, music is our progression, our progress in music is non-linear, I think. If it's not in the nature of it, then, well, I don't know what is. But, it's not a linear climb. We're going to go up and we're going to achieve a skill, and then we might lose that skill briefly, and then we're going to find it again and keep on going. And the more occurrences we have of attaining the skill, then the more reliable it gets, the more consistent it gets, the more we can start to assume it's going to be there. We're going to feel confident. We're going to have confidence in it. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words here. One teacher of mine once told me that when you've learned a new skill, it's 6 months till you can include it in your repertoire. I think we can beat that. I think with good observation skills and good body awareness and awareness of how things are working, we can beat that. But it takes practice and repetitions. So that's what I try to focus on in my teaching is, wherever we're at in our progress, whatever new skill it is we're trying to attain, we want to have the occurrence of it, feel it, notice what's occurring, be aware of those things, and then keep doing them and repeat it in a positive fashion so that we keep on doing it correctly, and then build it into habit so we've got a good habit going. Great tip regarding singing in the studio. I get so nervous in the studio that sometimes I forget how to sing properly. Absolutely, I am with you. Perhaps Alan Jackson maybe doesn't feel that, but I certainly get it. Promoting tension and hurting my voice in the process. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Rumor has it that Alan Jackson is like a one-hit or a one-take wonder. Like he just goes in and just nails it. Supposedly Whitney Houston was like that as well. One of the things, if you're getting really, really tense, that too frequently for us as vocalists becomes this self-perpetuating cycle where something occurs in the studio, or the monitor mix is bad, or this giant microphone is right in your face, and then we back away and we start to have to induce vocal fold engagement in order to create the sounds, right? So one thing that sometimes really helps with tension is I, for one, sing off axis with the microphone. So typically speaking, studio mics are side address microphones. Bear with me 1 second. I happen to have one right here. Typically, studio microphones are side address microphones. This is a Shure KSM32. And so studio engineers typically want us to, pony up to it like this, and there'll be a pop filter in front of it. But what I will do is I'll actually sing off axis so that I'm kind of singing through the magnetic field of the microphone. And what this does, the most important thing about this, and you can still do this with it in your face, but I personally find it more challenging, and so I choose to do this, is that this clears my line of sight, and I can really, really focus on singing to the far end of the room. This keeps my airflow much more consistent and much more engaged, and I tend to not accrue nearly the amount of tension that I might normally when I'm in the studio. So thanks for chiming back in. I hope that helps. Let's see here. I'm curious about your singing website and wondering if I can get information on it. Sure, it's jeffrolka.com. I'll just type that down here. Oops. There you go. There's a free online method that I did. It's called the AAA method, which stands for airflow, articulation, and alignment, airflow, and articulation. That's, it's pretty self-explanatory. Feel free to check it out. If you have any questions, get in touch. Where the tongue should be humming or NG sound? Awesome question. Awesome question. NG. So tip of the tongue is right behind the front bottom teeth. When you say hung, the rear of the tongue is going to lift up, and it's going to block off the mouth from airflow. So the air is going to go all out the sinus passages. The main thing is to keep the tip down by the front bottom teeth. Quick tips, principles for good singing. How it feels when you got it. Someone's bulging veins in neck, hot red, ha ha. I'm not sure what that means. But if someone's got bulging veins out of their neck, so long as they're staying well engaged, it could totally be fine. I mean, I do occasionally get the, veins popping in my neck, and I can assure you it's not from tension here. Any exercises to build breath control and pitch accuracy? Of course. Have a look at there's a video on Appaji O singing. I think it's called Appaji O breathing or Appaji O method on the channel. And there's a bunch of exercises and things like that in there. Also, Tomo, there is a video that I did which is a warm-up and it's a focus on diaphragmatic breathing. And in that video, I integrate a lot of breathing exercises into the flow of the video and into the exercises that you have there. So maybe give those 2 videos a shot and see what you think. Help? Sure. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do there. Would you incorporate vocabulary for singing? Yes. Yes, that's a really, really good request. And in fact, someone sent me an email about doing a vocabulary page on jeffrolka.com, and I am going to do that sooner than later. So check back at jeffrolka.com for that. Greg's Life 7, where would you recommend practicing? As I've improved, I've become very loud and don't want to disturb my family. Is there anywhere you would look for public practice spaces? Okay, I'm going to make this my last question. Thank you all for coming out today. Of course, I do this every Saturday, so please feel free to come on back. Greg's Life 7, 2 things. It's not just where, but it's also when. If it's possible to practice when everyone's gone, no harm, no foul. Yeah? I mean, I don't know your circumstances. If you're in an apartment block or something like that, that may still not be possible. But if your family goes off, they're off at school, or they go to work, or whatever people do, or they've just gone to the grocery store or something like that, you could possibly do that. Now, public practice spaces. I don't know where you live, but there are often public spaces. Things to check. Words like community music center can oftentimes lead you into a direction that you can find some resources there. Those will typically be free or for really, really low cost. For example, in San Francisco, there's the San Francisco Community Music Center. That's where I got that from. And they have practice rooms that are available. They're so cheap. I mean, in a city in San Francisco where rents are so astronomically high, it's literally like $5 a half hour or something like that. It's a very nominal fee. If that's still too much, then what I would do is do that search and then see if they can point you in a direction that would be able to help you out. Here in England, there are community centers as well that often will do you like really, really low cost practice spaces. I tend